We want to make it really easy for people who are facing the problems that we can solve for them to find us. And that's how we're approaching the system.
Welcome everyone to UpTech Report. This is our Founders Journey series. UpTech Report is sponsored by TerraLeap. Learn how to leverage the power of video at terraleap.io. I'm excited again to be joined with our guest, Anand Kulkarni, there we go, who based in Berkeley, California, CEO of Crowdbotics. Definitely check out part one of our interview where we dived into the actual platform of being able to build apps without coding using this machine learning, machine intelligence to combine thousands of packages from cross open source universe to create ready to use products. But this discussion, I want to dive a little bit deeper into your story. I mean, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to give you the big beats of my career. So originally I was a academic researcher, was a PhD researcher at UC Berkeley, had an NSF fellowship in mathematics, did a bit of academic work, published a lot of papers. I spun out an enterprise software company out of grad school with 3 other grad students as my business partners, and ran that for 6 years. We were working in the human computation, machine learning, and sales technology space. So that was my first exposure to running a startup. That was called Lead Genius. Yeah, we were venture backed, and sold product to a lot of big companies. It was a fun company to build, and we had a phenomenal team over there. Around 4 years ago, I became really excited by what was happening in machine learning. And when I was in grad school, I did a lot of work in optimization, machine learning, but it was regarded as a kind of a dead-end, stagnant field at the time. Hard to believe now, but AI was in a lull, and people said, yeah, it's hard to do better than what we've got right now. And we started to see really impressive results from recurrent neural networks and LTSM networks and essentially the entire deep learning movement. And I was really impressed by the idea that we could create things. I was seeing academic results that were creating things that looked like code using machine learning systems. They weren't exactly code, but they looked like code. And I became really, impressed and said, okay, I got to work on this. This is going to be the way that people build in the future. So we set out to build a company that could do that. Of course, you need a lot of data, lots of modules. As I mentioned, modules are the way that software engineers like to build already, by finding packages, components, and tools that they can snap together to get things off the ground quickly. And so that seemed like a natural place to start. And then, of course, over the course of those years, we found there was lots of demand for people to build software, which is a permanent tailwind, I think, in our current era. So that's been the journey to get us to where we are today.
Now, getting started, one thing is to have the idea. The other thing is to be able to have the funding to be able to make it happen. I'm curious, on the funding side, what have you seen as some common mistakes, or even a biggest mistake one could make when seeking funding?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 ways that people can raise money, right? You can raise money based on your just your concept and your resume, or you can raise money based on traction. And out of the 2, I have found that it's always easier to raise money based on traction, meaning do you have customers? Do you have users? Do you have technology built? And it's massively easier to raise funding with that second one, especially if you have revenue, than it is to raise money without it. And of course, you can go either way. Lots of founders, raise pre-revenue. But in my experience, both advising companies and building companies myself, I think it's always a sound approach to look at the fundamentals of your business and say, hey, we are already generating cash flow. There's money coming in. We know how to make this work. We just need to take it bigger. And that's an easier conversation to have. than saying, believe us.
Yeah, then please believe us. For you guys, have you gotten funding yet? Have you been bootstrapping? What's your approach?
Yeah, so we bootstrapped in the beginning, up to just under our first $1 million of revenue, and at that point we raised our seed round from some really phenomenal people, from Hunter Walk at Homebrew and Michael Deering at Harrison Metal and the folks over at B Partners, and UC Berkeley's House Fund, as well as some really smart angels. So yeah, we have raised money, and I think that we were lucky to be able to work with some really talented people who joined the company at that time.
Or building the team and being able to grow from there, you kind of have to have the right people, right? Like to be able to keep growing, people are so crucial. Curious of your experience, what are some common mistakes you can make when it comes to hiring?
Yeah, okay. So I remember 12 years ago when I was first looking at hiring people for the first time, and I said, how do I know if somebody's really good? I should just hire people who are my friends and say let's make it work. But it turns out you can be systematic about hiring, and by developing a really well-honed sense of how people perform, you end up making really outsized and having really outsized impacts in your company. So some of the things that we look for here, of course, we want to make sure people are technically extremely sound. We have a very technical product, and it's important that people who are building that product can understand all elements of that. So typically that means a track record historically of having worked on very a diversity of interesting technical and difficult things, often in a architectural or leadership capacity. And then familiarity across multiple frameworks and multiple languages. Generally, all the software engineers here are what we call polyglots. They speak multiple languages, meaning we're not a pure JavaScript platform or a pure Python platform. And so we have to make difficult decisions about the trade-offs in different languages and development models, because our customers inherit those choices from us, right? When you spin up an app on Crowdbotics, you are going to be getting a lot of code that was generated by the platform, and it's important that that code is up to snuff. So when we hire our team, we make sure people are fluent in that approach, that they can move from one system to another without really losing their confidence.
It's having that polygon, is that the ability to understand the multiple languages and the technical aspects, but working well as a team. I imagine as you grow, the culture fit is also important, and how you manage that growth is crucial. How big is your team today?
So we're 30 people full time. And yeah, the culture is crucial as part of it. It can't trump technical excellence, but it's also in there.
Are you guys located in different cities? What's your geographic?
I mean, I think since COVID, our practice has become the norm. So we are distributed across the U.S. and in part across the globe. But I'm here in Berkeley, and my head of engineering is in LA. My head of product solutions is also in LA. We've got a couple folks in Austin, somebody in Nashville, someone in New York City, a few folks in Mexico City. So it goes outward from there. I think that the great thing about being able to be remote friendly, especially in a post-COVID world, is that we can hire folks from absolutely anywhere in the world. And that means you can tap into the best talent, regardless of if they happen to be in your neighborhood or not.
Having the right team allows for growth. And it sounds like you guys are definitely experiencing the big need and demand for this type of solution. I found it interesting. You actually started off describing you were focused on really developers and like just making it easier for developers to be able to code faster by just already having these packets ready to be able to pull in. But then you realize there's a bigger need. I'm curious, how did that change or morph your thinking when it comes to marketing and being able to get the word and the story itself? Any lessons learned there?
Yeah, okay. So One thing that's worth mentioning is that most of our business, if not all of our business, is inbound, meaning people come and discover us by reading our materials on the web, finding our blog content, finding technical content that we've put out there, which is great. That's a phenomenal way for us to grow. But that shift is really driven by the fact that we realize that business users are the ones who have big needs around this, right? Developers are great, and obviously whatever we build has to have strong buy-in from technical users because they always sign off on decisions that are being made inside organizations. But developers who end up framing their problems a little bit differently when they go into things often like to tinker, experiment, try out new technologies. Often there's a long period between when they first encounter a tech and when they say, let me actually use this for a project. And I think that's the reason that we shifted when we ended up building a business. We saw a lot of demand coming in from people who were not developers and said, hey, there's an opportunity here, which looks like the right move.
How do you plan on, or have you seen marketing in today's environment where it's very distracted? Everyone's doing digital marketing because you can't do in-person events or conferences or trade shows. How have you seen a good way to get attention, especially to business leaders, those that are the key decision makers that are needing your app? How do you break through the noise?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, a lot of our strategy is built around the idea that when you're building an application, you can look at that space of low code as kind of a black box on the outside. There's lots of solutions and lots of providers, and you don't really care about that as a business leader. All you actually care about is a solution to your specific problem, right? So I need to build a dashboard that does this right now. Let me find what dashboarding solutions are out there that are HIPAA compliant, right? That's a good example of where you might start your search process. So for us, we have thought about looking at a series of niche problems and looking at that universe of niches as the place that we direct our marketing efforts. And there's some ways that our product is uniquely well suited for that because we have lots and lots of applications built so far in a lot of different domains. So, there's this history and track record of kind of usage in different areas. But I think that's how we think about it. You don't necessarily want to, at least not for us, we're not trying to make a concerted effort to blanket the marketplace. We want to make it really easy for people who are facing the problems that we can solve for them to find us. And that's how we're approaching the system.
How do you go ahead about measuring the customer experience itself if someone comes on?
Yeah, great question. So I think the methodology that we apply is one that should be standard and look familiar to a lot of low-touch SaaS companies. So we have an inbound funnel. We score everybody who shows up in that funnel, depending on what they're doing. Basically, how successful were they in trying to build an application? How much did they engage with various articles that we put out, technical articles around how to build? And then what parts of the product are they using? Then, of course, we've actually got places throughout the product where we make it really easy to go and ask for help, right? So if you're trying to get something custom built, you can't figure it out. Okay, there's the button to click to talk to a person, and we'll connect you into that pathway. That approach, making it kind of easy to get help, is one of the ways that we have thought about helping customers scale up more quickly and get more success out of the platform. But yeah, the approach of inbound user scoring and kind of keeping track of who is getting stuck and who is not. I think that's the approach that user-friendly SaaS platforms really ought to take when they are trying to understand, how to make their user experience better.
We're expanding. You got the initial interest and things are moving. How do you know when it's the right time for expansion and whether it's bringing in funding and to really actively go after customers versus just letting inbound content come? What's your indication and methodology there?
Yeah, okay. So I will clarify that inbound is controllable if you're driving marketing appropriately, right? So we're watching specifically how much content we're producing every month, and also how much traffic we are deploying through performance marketing into those content locations and into our core properties. So there is, it's not to say that inbound means that your growth is organic. It means that, we have carefully tailored our strategy and our marketing spending towards making sure inbound works really well for us. Now, the question is, where do you know the time is right to try and grow? So if you're a funded startup, a venture-backed startup, you are always asking this question of how do we grow even faster than we are growing right now by deploying our capital more intelligently? So that's the decision you make, ideally before you raise your first dollars, but definitely every time you go out to get more capital, you're asking, can we grow faster than we're growing now? Do we understand our economics well enough? For us, because our marketing is very predictable, we know that spending a certain amount of dollars on user acquisition results in a certain number of customers showing up as paid users at the end of the funnel. For any founder who's looking at this question, you should be looking at those metrics from day one, as we have, for how much is a customer worth on average, how much is a user worth on average who's free, how much can we spend to get a user and still have it come out profitable for us, and then how quickly can we scale that up without breaking the channel. And that's the sort of the art of building an internet business in 2020. It's really more of a science.
An alchemy of, okay, let's see where this fits. How long did it take you to find those measurements, that metrics?
Yeah, so the first part of the business that we built up, before we raised money, we got to initial traction just based on let's call them informal mechanisms, right? So pounding the pavement and hustling. Over the course of the next year after that, when we took capital, we continued onward and started collecting data religiously about our cost of customer acquisition, our user value, our conversion metrics, and our conversion funnel. And now that's a key stat for us. We track that every day and look at those numbers on a daily basis to understand where are people getting stuck. And the nice thing is this corresponds directly to where people are having difficulty in the product, right? So if people are stuck in creating an app, they can't figure out how to get their goal achieved, they're never going to turn into a customer, right? They may not even succeed as a free user. So that tells us that's the place we need to go and we need to look. And that also tells us where we should be, deploying capital, right? Should we be investing more in customer acquisition to pull more users in, or should we be spending that money on engineering instead to go fix the place that the product is giving people friction? And there's always a balancing act between, are we good enough to justify more acquisition now, or should we invest more in product improvements that lead to a better product experience for our users? And usually you want to do both, right? Pull in customers, make your product better, and it's a growing cycle.
Looking forward from here, what challenges do you see you're going to need to overcome in order to keep scaling and growing?
Yeah. Okay. So we've scaled to a pretty good level this year, and I think we'll hit pretty comfortably our targets for 2021. Even though this was a difficult year for most of the market, we didn't actually experience that. A lot of folks ended up needing software more as a result of the world going virtual. Yeah. And so we're looking at a great 2021 ahead of us, which is fantastic. I think that the impediments that we're looking at here and the things that we think about, first, can we continue to provide enough coverage on the types of solutions people are looking to construct that we maintain the advantage that we have right now in providing good solutions for customers who are searching for problems that they're trying to solve. The second one is, can we make sure that our end users find it easy enough to create an app that we're able to convert those free users into successful app creators early on in the process? Because that's the basic metric that our customers look to us to achieve, and our users they're coming to us to figure out how to build apps easily. So we think about like this time to first app metric, right? How fast after you've signed up for the system, are you seeing a running app in your web browser or your interface? So we want that to be under 5 minutes, because that shows that we're doing our jobs right. So bringing that number down to be as small as possible is really our key product metric to look at for user success. But yeah, 2021 I think looks like a great year to scale up. We're seeing a lot of market demand for what we're doing, and of course, a performance marketing strategy based on inbound customer acquisition scales up really nicely in a lot of ways.
As CEO and leader, what books, audiobooks, podcasts have you listened to or reading right now that you would recommend?
Yeah, okay, so there's a bunch. Good one is, if you're a first-time founder, High Output Management by Andy Grove, who was the CEO of Intel for a long time, and basically breaks down management as an engineering problem. And it actually explains that software development can be made predictable, which is anathema to a lot of technologists. But he argues that actually you can break it down into steps and decompose it, and it works out really well. So that one's great. Jason Lemkin runs a blog called SaaStr, which is now a juggernaut in its own right. But if you're building a SaaS company, it's a lot of educational content there. And of course, I am a massive fan of the material that's put out by Y Combinator, the tech accelerator. I've participated in YC myself. And I will say that I think they're reducing the practice of building startups, technology startups, into a science. So it's really a worthwhile set of materials that they put out, from documentation, legal docs, advice on how to process and structure rounds, even thinking about your business. All great content to tap into.
Last question for you. What kind of tech innovations do you predict we'll see in the near term, the next year or two, and long term, 5, 10 years from now?
Okay, so language models for artificial intelligence, GPT-3, and the related category of things that GPT-3 represent are a massive disruption and a massive disrupting force that the market has not yet recognized and appreciated yet enough. But you're going to see over the course of the next 5 years, increasing numbers of places, applications where we can harness language models to talk to interfaces or talk to systems in ways that we would not have believed possible in the past, right? So I'm extremely bullish on what natural language models are going to do. Obviously, we're doing a lot of stuff thinking about how that's going to impact software development, but you can imagine it's going to impact lots of domains where you end up interacting with human beings today. Their jobs are going to become much more efficient because they'll be able to use those tools to help. I think there's also a big potential for using those tools in creative contexts, right? Art, media, writing, production, all places where GPT-3 is going to be able to kind of change the role of a content creator in some basic ways, right? Instead of somebody sitting down and writing articles entirely by hand, maybe you're going to write the outline, pass it through GPT-3 or a language model a few times, and end up using that as kind of a predictive tool to amplify your output or better explore the space of possible creations you might make. And so there's going to be a massive impact with this. I think that it's been underhyped, to be honest, compared to where it is, and that's the nature of AI, right? Is people always debate, is it going to be that impactful or not? And then by the time that it actually gets into applications, people say, well, okay, it's not really that impressive. It's just Google Home, giving us perfect audio responses. So these are the kinds of innovations I think we're going to see. There's going to be big changes in how we use technology products that will surprise us.
I really appreciate your passion and excitement for the future, and that it's not hype. If anything, there's more to this. What's possible with voice-enabled AI. I like it. So thank you so much, Anand, for sharing your journey and the lessons learned here. There's a lot of great insight.
Hey, excited to talk about this. I think it's great stuff.
Now, definitely for those that want to learn more about Anand's venture Crowdbotics, go to crowdbotics.com and you can sign up for a free trial and check more out. Also see part one, our first part of our interview, where he shared a deep dive into what they are doing. Today, again, our sponsor for this episode is TerraLeap. If your company wants to learn how to better leverage the power of video to drive sales and marketing, head over to TerraLeap.io and learn about the new product customer stories. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.